Epcot, a theme park founded upon Walt Disney's optimism for the future, has seen numerous transformations over its 40-year history. From its groundbreaking rides and much-loved shows, to its interactive exhibits and evening entertainment, many experiences have come and gone. Journey through time to uncover the fascinating story of 10 lost rides from this Walt Disney World theme park. Exploring the history and future of transportation, World of Motion opened with Epcot Centre on 1st of October 1982. The attraction showcased the edutainment philosophy of early Epcot, utilising an entertaining ride experience while also teaching guests about a particular topic. World of Motion will be designed by the legendary Ward Kimball. Showing his humour throughout, it will become the only attraction the animator ever worked on. Housed in a mirrored wheel-shaped building, World of Motion was located on the eastern side of the park. As guests approached, they would see a line of ride vehicles spiralling upwards before they stepped inside. A line of cars progressed slowly through the station, and visitors would board one of the 6-passenger Omnimovers from a moving walkway. Travelling upwards, they would first make a loop around the spiral ramp on the building's exterior before entering the main show. The indoor dark ride featured numerous scenes, populated with audio-animatronic characters, as well as the use of projected screens. Each scene featured a humorous twist or sight gag. Starting with the first mode of transportation, foot power, World of Motion would take riders from boats and animals past the invention of the wheel to the age of steam. Upon reaching the early 1900s, the world's first traffic jam was shown during one of the attraction's most memorable scenes. After it was onto the open road of the 1940s and 50s, where the attraction's theme song It's Fun to Be Free could be heard. Vehicles then passed through a series of speed tunnels as they were rocketed into the future for the final scene, a futuristic city centre core. Upon disembarking, guests would visit the Trans Centre post-show area. This space housed numerous exhibits, all related to transportation. During the 1990s, Epcot was seeing a shift in direction. Attendance levels had been static, and in an effort to turn that around, the park had begun to refresh many of its opening day attractions. Rides and shows were updated with a more relevant, less educational style, and more thrilling attractions had begun to be introduced. Eager to secure continued sponsorship, it was announced that World of Motion would close in 1996, to be transformed into Test Track. This would be a high-speed thrill ride themed around an automobile testing facility. To create the new attraction, the existing building would be gutted, with an extended track constructed around the exterior. Test Track would open in 1999 after numerous delays. It would become incredibly popular and receive an update in 2012. Coming full circle, a third refresh inspired by the original World of Motion is planned. Although the host pavilion opened with the park in October 1982, Journey into Imagination would not debut until March the following year. The ride was an Omnimover attraction, created by Tony Baxter and Steve Kirk. It would be in stark contrast to most of Epcot's early attractions, shunning the educational tone and catering to younger park visitors. Approaching the crystalline glass pavilion, guests would pass numerous fountains and water features before they ventured inside. The interior opened into a giant sunlit atrium, where a spiral staircase would lead to the upstairs Imageworks. To the right, a curved loading station for Journey into Imagination. Vehicles would progress slowly through the station, never stopping, backed by a colourful pastel mural. Guests would climb aboard and the ride would begin, as vehicles separated into trains of 4 cars. Visitors would be floating in the clouds, and in the distance they would see a strange silhouette of an unusual flying machine. Arriving closer, they would be introduced to Dreamfinder, while listening to a version of the theme song. Dreamfinder would tell you about imagination, as well as introducing his companion Figment. This was the longest scene in the attraction, lasting over 3 minutes. It used a complex ride system where vehicles entered a giant turntable, keeping pace with moving set pieces. After this, it was off to Dreamport, where ideas are stored. Rooms featured hundreds of moving props and audio animatronics. Vehicles would progress through detailed scenes, representing the arts, literature and science. Figment and Dreamfinder made numerous appearances, and the theme song One Little Spark would be heard throughout. Near the end of the attraction, a circular room would feature Figment in the centre surrounded by screens, each one depicting him undertaking different professions. The ride ended with Dreamfinder taking your picture and displaying it on screen. Visitors would exit and were able to explore Imageworks. During its second decade, Epcot had been renovating many of its original attractions. 1994 had brought Honey, I Shrunk the Audience to the pavilion, and with it the concept of the Imagination Institute. This would be carried over into an attraction redo for 1999. The ride system would be shortened, introducing stops to compensate. Dreamfinder would be no more, and Figment would be reduced to a cameo role. The new Journey into Your Imagination took Epcot guests on a tour of the Imagination Institute. This version was much less detailed than its predecessor. It relied on mostly static sets and sometimes complete darkness. Gone were the beloved Dreamfinder and Figment audio animatronics. Visitors who enjoyed the original complained about the lack of characters, and those who were new branded the ride as boring. After just 24 months of operation, this version of the attraction quietly closed in October 2001. A third version would open in June 2002. It was named Journey into Imagination with Figment, highlighting the return of the Purple Dragon. The main sets were retained but updated, and an animatronic Figment was included in many of the scenes. The finale of the ride included props that paid homage to the visual style of the original. Also reinstated was the theme song One Little Spark, updated with new lyrics and arrangements. This version was better received than the Your Imagination incarnation, and can still be ridden in Epcot today. The love for Figment has more recently been embraced by Disney. He has appeared across numerous merchandise items, popcorn buckets, and even as a walk-around character. Opening 1 year after the park, Horizons was the first new pavilion to be added to Future World, and debuted on 1st of October 1983. Horizons was the definitive Epcot attraction, embodying the ethos of the park, and tying all the main themes together with a future-facing outlook. Located between Universe of Energy and World of Motion, the huge tan building of Horizons was reminiscent of World's Fairs of the past, but also looked somewhat otherworldly, like a giant spaceship had just landed in Future World. Entering through automatic doors, visitors would be welcomed with the attraction's theme song New Horizons, the futuristic queue line themed to an intergalactic spaceport. Boards showed imminent departures, as visitors would wind their way to the departure concourse. Ride vehicles moved continuously, passing through the station, suspended from the ceiling. Holding 4 per car, guests boarded from a moving walkway. Unlike traditional Omnimovers, riders travelled sideways, facing one side of the track. The ride would begin looking back at tomorrow. Relaxed narration would explain the action unfolding in front of riders as they passed numerous scenes. These told the story of how the future was perceived by those in the past, from Jules Verne right through to the 1950s. The ride would then open into 2 large Omnimax screens. Images surrounding guests, showing abstract designs, crystalline structures, and a look at current technology that could be used to build the world of tomorrow. Following this, vehicles would progress past windows of tomorrow. Large-scale sets and detailed scenes would be filled with animatronic characters, giving a glimpse into a possible future. Passing an apartment in a skyscraper city, vehicles would move to a desert farm, before the underwater sea castle, and finally reaching Brava Centauri in outer space. The finale of the ride was a chance for visitors to choose their own ending. Riders could select one of 3 potential ways to travel, returning to Futureport with a flight path through space, over the desert, or undersea. Upon exiting, riders would pass a large mural depicting an optimistic future. With the sponsorship for Horizons expiring, the attraction would close on Christmas Day 1994. There were plans to upgrade and retheme the ride, but work never began. Sitting dormant, it would reopen almost a year later. 2 major pavilions in the area had closed for refurbishment, and Horizons was open to provide additional capacity in Future World East. It would operate until January 1999, closing permanently. Plans were made for a new attraction in its place, with the building completely demolished to facilitate this. By 2000, construction on the new pavilion had begun. Mission Space would open in 2003 on the site formerly occupied by Horizons. This flight simulator attraction has seen numerous changes over the years, but the core ride experience remains today. An opening day pavilion, the land stayed true to the bold vision of 1982 Epcot Centre. This giant building housed numerous attractions that embody the educational nature of the new park. The earthy colour palette and exotic planting invited visitors to explore our relationship with the land itself. Topics ranged from food production and conservation to nutrition and biotechnology. On the ground floor of the airy atrium was Kitchen Cabaret. Kitchen Cabaret was a light-hearted musical revue featuring a cast of audio-animatronic characters. Bonnie Appetit would be your host for the show, which focused on healthy eating and the 4 food groups. The musically gifted Bonnie was joined by singing condiments, crooning dairy products, and serenading cereals. The show even featured Ham and Eggs as a pair of vaudeville-style comics. Kitchen Cabaret showcased a number of original songs across a multitude of genres, the highlight being the Latin-inspired Veggie Veggie Fruit Fruit, performed by the Colander Combo and the Fiesta Fruit. The animatronics used in the show, while cartoonish, possessed a high degree of motion. Bonnie herself a standout example of this. The early 1990s saw a change in the overall direction of Epcot. Much of the park was refreshed, in an effort to improve relevance to modern audiences. Starting in 1993, the land saw all of its attractions updated to coincide with a change of sponsorship. Kitchen Cabaret's message had become slightly outdated. Food groups had been replaced with the food pyramid, and the show would close in early January 1994 for a 3-month retheme. Opening on March 26th, the new attraction would be named Food Rocks. Food Rocks would still be a musical audio-animatronic revue. However, the new version would lean heavily into the 90s aesthetic that Epcot was embracing. The 13-minute show was themed as a benefit concert for good nutrition, and this time hosted by Food Rapper, voiced by real-life rap star Tone Loc. Some of the animatronics were reused or repurposed, but the characters in Food Rocks had a much more limited range of motion than those starring in its predecessor. Songs heard during the performance, as well as some of the characters, were parodies of popular performances and tracks. Pun-filled names abound. Visitors could see the Peach Boys perform Good Nutrition, witness Neil Moussaka sing Vegetables Are Good For You, or enjoy Chubby Cheddar's Let's Exercise, the latter two voiced by their real-life counterparts. The show was periodically interrupted by heavy metal band XS, unhappy with nutrition. By the early 2000s, the upbeat show was playing to small crowds, guests shunning Food Rocks for Epcot's more modern thrilling attractions. In 2003, rumours began circulating that hit attraction Soarin' Over California would be coming to Epcot. This flying theatre had been one of the standout rides from Disney's California Adventure since its opening 2 years earlier. A massive show building was constructed behind the land pavilion to house the new ride. Food Rocks would close on January 3, 2004 as part of construction for the project. When Soarin' opened, the former Food Rocks space was used for FastPass distribution machines, as well as the initial part of its queue. The second new pavilion to be added to Future World since the construction of Epcot, the Living Seas, opened in 1986. Featuring the world's largest saltwater aquarium, this aquatic-themed experience explored the planet's oceans through ride, film and interactive exhibits. Located next to the land, the large building featured a waveform exterior, with aquatic colours and planting. A curving queue line would deliver visitors to a theatre, where they would watch a short film about the creation of the oceans and its subsequent exploration. During this, they would be introduced to Seabase Alpha, a futuristic underwater research facility. On screen, hydrolators would be shown, before guests were invited to board one themselves. Visitors would enter one of these unusual elevators, and once inside, they would be transported downwards to the seabed. Upon exiting, they would find themselves at the loading platform for the Caribbean Coral Reef ride. Guests sat in 2-person sea cabs that would transport them to Seabase Alpha. Along the way, they would pass through and next to the large saltwater tank, with windows providing views of the aquatic life inside. Seabase Alpha itself was a large 2-storey facility. In the centre, a diver lockout chamber, around the sides numerous hands-on exhibits. Escalators would transport visitors between levels, and on the upper floor they could walk past windows into the very centre of the massive tank. The decor was cold and industrial, simulating a working undersea research centre, with a lack of natural light only enhancing the effect. Visitors could spend as much or as little time as they wanted exploring the sea base. To exit, they would board a second set of hydrolators that would return them to the surface. The Living Seas would continue to operate fully until 2001. At that time, the Sea Cab ride was closed, and visitors would enter Seabase Alpha immediately after exiting the hydrolators. The undersea research theme would be dropped slowly over time. With the success of 2004's Finding Nemo, colourful exhibits featuring fish from the film, as well as sculptures around the exterior, would be added. Turtle Talk with Crush would open later in the year, and the overwhelming success of this living character show led to further changes. For 2005, the pavilion would be named The Seas with Nemo and Friends. The hydrolators were no more, and interior exhibits were updated to be themed around the computer-animated film. Throughout 2006, construction continued, and late that year a brand new ride debuted. The sea cabs had been replaced with clammobiles, and the track length extended. Guests could now take a slow-moving journey past scenes featuring characters from Finding Nemo, as well as a view into the main tank. The pavilion would become the first at Epcot designed around a film franchise. Recently renamed The Seas with a refreshed exterior, the attraction and interior exhibits continue to entertain park visitors today. Announced in January of 1988, Epcot's new Wonders of Life pavilion would bring body, health and fitness-themed attractions to the park the following year. Upon opening, the Golden Dome would be home to multiple shows, interactive exhibits, as well as headline attraction Body Wars. Body Wars would use the same motion simulator technology that had premiered with Disneyland Star Tours 2 years prior. This time, instead of an intergalactic adventure, visitors would be taken on a ride through the human body. Passing under a large mural at the edge of the Wonders of Life dome, visitors would leave the colourful pavilion behind and enter the high-tech world of Met. While walking through the monochrome corridors, monitors overhead would introduce you to the company, its ongoing research, as well as their groundbreaking miniaturisation technology. Batched into groups of 40, guests would line up ready to board their probe, while a video played. This short pre-show introduced their craft, Bravo 229er, and they learned of today's mission. Probes would be travelling to a site of a splinter inside the human body to meet scientist Dr. Cynthia Lair. Eventually the doors to the simulator would open and guests would board. Sitting in one of 5 rows, passengers would fasten a retractable seatbelt. Once secured, guests would meet Captain Braddock and enter the miniaturisation bay, where they were quickly under the skin. Following some white blood cells, they would arrive at the splinter and rendezvous with Dr. Lair. While taking scientific readings, the turbulent conditions would cause her to be pulled towards a capillary. The routine operation had suddenly turned into a rescue mission. Racing through the body, probes would pass through blood vessels and the heart until they reached the lungs where Dr. Lair was being attacked by white blood cells. Using the ship's lasers to stun them, the doctor was freed and was able to climb aboard. Unfortunately, the probe was now low on power, unable to beam out. An energy boost was needed, so using the heart's energy, the ship was propelled to the brain. Inside, electrical energy from a neuron recharged power cells, and visitors were quickly beamed out. Breaking every rule in the book, guests had pulled off the most spectacular mission the place had ever seen. Body Wars was considered Epcot's first true thrill ride, and upon its debut, waits of over an hour were not uncommon. However, the turbulent ride experience of fast-paced visuals also caused many guests to suffer with motion sickness and nausea. By the late 1990s, Body Wars was no longer commanding a crowd. Queues still formed at similar attraction Star Tours, but the lack of a recognisable brand and the out-of-the-way location resulted in the simulator being walk-on most of the year. In 2004, Wonders of Life changed to seasonal operation, only opening during the more crowded holiday periods. The end was in sight, and the full pavilion closed for good on January 1st, 2007. The building would find continued use as the festival centre during annual Epcot events until 2018. The marquee for Body Wars covered, with the simulators likely used for parts. Still the most recent nation to be added to World Showcase, Norway joined its neighbours around Epcot's lagoon in 1988. Reminiscent of a traditional Norwegian village, this national pavilion showcased the country's culture, history and cuisine, and upon opening, the centrepiece was the water-based dark ride Maelstrom. Located in the very back of the new pavilion, Maelstrom was the most elaborate attraction installed in World Showcase up until that point. The indoor boat ride took visitors on a 5-minute adventure, showcasing Norway's mythology and culture. The unique ride system featured forwards and backwards sections, with animatronics as well as a thrilling drop. The ride would be paired with a travelogue film exploring the spirit of Norway. Approaching the attraction, guests would pass a raging waterfall, where they would possibly catch a glimpse of one of the ride's boats appearing through an opening in the rocks. Entering a large room containing the loading dock, visitors would enter a switchback queue. Above the dock, a large wraparound mural depicted Norwegian scenery and acted as a preview for what they were about to experience. Vehicles resembled Viking longboats and could hold 16 riders in 4 rows. Guests would be dispatched and after rounding a corner would slowly progress up a lift hill. Accompanied by a single light, they would be told of the spirit of Norway. Boats would pass scenes showing Viking seafarers, before entering a marsh and encountering a 3-headed troll. Angered by the boats, the trolls cast a spell, sending riders backwards. Passing a family of polar bears, boats would enter a mountain clearing flooded with natural light. Longboats teetered on the edge of a waterfall. A rock troll appeared, and boats pivoted, racing forwards down a 28-foot drop. Riders emerged in the middle of a North Sea storm, an oil rig towering overhead. The darkness subsided as boats entered a calm Norwegian fishing port, ready to disembark. Guests would congregate in the village square, awaiting the opening of automatic doors into an adjacent theatre. Inside, they would view a 5-minute film showcasing Norway and its people. Being one of only 2 true rides in World Showcase, Maelstrom remained a popular part of the Norway Pavilion and was even included on the FastPass system. Despite the boat ride being a draw, visitors would often skip the concluding film, especially during repeat visits. Eventually, the automatic doors would be permanently open, with the travelogue continuously looping. In 2014, it was announced that Maelstrom would close, to be transformed into a new ride based on the hit animated film Frozen. Frozen was set in a fictionalised kingdom, heavily inspired by Norway, and the inclusion in World Showcase fit with the park's direction to include more character-driven experiences. The ride system was retained and extended, the queue and theatre repurposed. Opening on 21st of June 2016, Frozen Ever After would take visitors past characters and locations from the animated films, all the while accompanied by the memorable songs from its soundtrack. While criticised by some, the new ride has been popular with the public, seeing versions constructed at Disney parks around the world. Another opening day attraction, Universe of Energy, was located in the northeastern corner of Future World. The site chosen allowed the pavilion to face south. Its wedge-shaped roof covered with photovoltaic panels, powering the ride inside. Universe of Energy housed only a single attraction, but one that was on an immense scale, pushing the limits of theme park technology. Passing the mirrored facade, guests would assemble in a pre-show area, featuring a unique screen composed of 100 revolving triangular panels. The rotation was synchronised with the projected film to create a mesmerising kinetic mosaic of visual patterns. Following the pre-show presentation, guests entered a theatre to be seated in rows. However, this was no ordinary theatre, and was in fact composed of 6 ride vehicles. Doors at the end of each row would close, and the full theatre would rotate to face an enormous screen, showing an animated film that explored the creation of fossil fuels. Upon the film's conclusion, the 6 ride vehicles moved together as one. Slowly, they entered the dark, damp ambience of the Mesozoic era. The forest surrounded visitors with the sights, sounds and smells of this prehistoric time. The 6 trackless ride vehicles moved individually in single file, to travel slowly through the main diorama, guided by hidden wires under the floor. Guests passed painstakingly detailed scenes, populated with lifelike animatronics. The travelling theatre then entered a second auditorium, where a turntable would again rotate the cars to face 3 giant screens. When combined, the screens would curve over 200 degrees, extending well past visitors' peripheral vision. A film explored the toil, sweat, and ingenuity required to obtain energy. Following this, the theatre moved once more, returning to the original room and facing a large cylindrical screen, where a short computer-animated finale was shown, featuring the upbeat theme song for the pavilion. By the 1990s, the original presentations had started to become outdated. Worldwide technology was rapidly progressing, and the educational tone was distinctively dry. In 1996, it was time for the Universe of Energy to be updated, and the original version of the attraction was closed on January 21st to be transformed into Ellen's Energy Adventure. This version of the pavilion was decidedly more light-hearted than its predecessor. Featuring completely new films, the attraction used the existing travelling theatre ride vehicles and accompanying primeval diorama with the addition of an Ellen animatronic. Ellen DeGeneres would star alongside celebrities Bill Nye, Jamie Lee Curtis and Alex Trebek in a more light-hearted comedic exploration of the subject. The new storyline took place within a dream sequence and featured a journey through time to learn about energy. The 2010s brought a similar directional change to Epcot as the 1990s had. A slow-moving theatre attraction featuring an outdated view on energy didn't resonate with guests the same way it had over 20 years earlier. In 2017, it was announced that a Guardians of the Galaxy ride would replace Universe of Energy, and Ellen's Energy Adventure closed on August 13th of the same year. The replacement attraction would open as Cosmic Rewind in spring 2022, becoming Epcot's first roller coaster. Located on both sides of Epcot's central core, Innoventions was installed for 1994 and featured an ever-changing collection of hands-on exhibits and interactive technology. Created at a time when the park was striving to become less educational and more fun, the spacious exhibition floors were colourful and chaotic. The attraction replaced the earlier Communicore that had opened with the park, bringing together the concepts from the Future World pavilions by offering complementary experiences. Many of the exhibits were hands-on, and most were computer-based. In the early 1980s, computers were the hot new technology, and in Communicore they would be used to take quizzes, complete challenges, or even design a roller coaster. Communicore closed in January 1994, ready to be transformed. Innoventions opened in July the same year, welcoming guests to a new world of technology. Split between east and west buildings, visitors could find a completely transformed interior. The large halls were now considerably darker and more industrial, lit from steel trusses above. Bright and in your face, the decor used colourful lighting, neon and polished steel, mimicking the aesthetic of the day. The space was filled with hundreds of video monitors, computer screens, and interactive exhibits. Many of the small attractions inside were driven by a corporate sponsor. AT&T, IBM, Apple, and General Motors all had exhibits. One of the largest sponsors was Sega, who installed 150 Genesis Mega Drive consoles in their 10,000 square foot space. Guests could interact with company products, try early virtual reality, and learn about upcoming technology. Upon opening, the concept was so successful that a version was created for Disneyland. Added in 1998 as part of New Tomorrowland, it would occupy the building previously housing the Carousel of Progress. At Epcot, Innoventions received an update in 1999 as part of the Millennium celebrations. Subtitled The Road to Tomorrow, this new version changed the aesthetic of the space, with the aim of tying the exhibits together. The nature of the technology presented resulted in it sometimes dating quickly, but the premise of Innoventions allowed for this. Exhibits could easily be swapped or updated, refreshing previous content or adding new sponsors altogether. Another refresh came in 2007, updating the interior and dropping the Road to Tomorrow concept. Innoventions would continue to operate, but over time the number of attractions inside reduced. Innoventions West closed permanently in 2015, with the eastern portion remaining until 2019. Epcot was undergoing another transformation, with the centre of the park being reconfigured. The former location of Innoventions East is now Connections Eatery, while the western building has been completely demolished to make way for Communicore Hall and Plaza. While not technically a ride, Illuminations Reflections of Earth was Epcot's longest running and most loved nighttime spectacular. Epcot's first evening show premiered soon after the park's opening. Le Carnaval de Lumière celebrated world festivals and used rear projection screens combined with fountains and fireworks. It could be viewed from the section of promenade between Mexico and Canada. A New World Fantasy and Laserphonic Fantasy would be introduced in 1983 and 1984. These two shows would build on the prior version, using synthesized classical music and adding moving lighting and lasers to accompany the fountains and fireworks. The nighttime entertainment at Epcot would be updated again in 1988. The new Illuminations would use the same classical soundtrack, but this time with an orchestral arrangement. The show would include a celebration of each country and build from fountains and lasers to a firework finale. As part of Walt Disney World's 25th anniversary, Illuminations 25 debuted. Introducing new music, versions of the show would continue until 1999. Ready to celebrate the millennium, Epcot would become the centrepiece of Walt Disney World's festivities. Spaceship Earth would be adorned with a glittering 2000. A new Millennium Village would be created. The park would premiere Parade Tapestry of Nations, and Illuminations would receive another update. Created and directed by Don Dorsey, Illuminations 2000 Reflections of Earth would become the most spectacular evening show at Epcot to date. Utilising the full World Showcase Lagoon, the new production featured fountains, lasers and pyrotechnics like its predecessor, but added a giant LED globe, inferno barge and flaming torches. On an epic scale, the show told the story of Earth, from its creation to its future, accompanied by a moving soundtrack. Illuminations 2000 Reflections of Earth featured 3 distinct sections, each representing a period on Earth. Beginning with rhythmic drumming, a single firework would start the show, quickly followed by a fiery inferno and chaotic pyrotechnics. This first act signified the birth of the planet. Calmness would ensue as the show transitioned into the second act. Order would bring about the triumph of life. A giant globe would glide across the water. Images displayed showing the creation of life on Earth through to the forming of civilization. National pavilions around the lagoon would glow as fireworks erupted for a worldwide celebration. The final act would set out hope for the future, the giant globe opening to reveal the Unity Torch, joining the 19 around the lagoon to represent the 20th century. 1,000 daylight fireworks illuminated World Showcase, before a barrage of pyrotechnics would indicate the end of the show. Following the conclusion of the Millennium Celebration, 2,000 would be dropped from the name, but Illuminations Reflection of Earth would continue to play nightly to a packed promenade. Occasionally augmented by an additional finale, the show would complete a 20-year run at the park. Upon closing, Reflections of Earth would be replaced by a limited-time show, Epcot Forever, intended as a celebration of the park itself. Harmonious, a new spectacular inspired by Disney films, debuted in 2021. Intended as a long-term replacement to Illuminations, Harmonious utilised newly created barges, permanently moored in the centre of World Showcase Lagoon. Criticised for their visual intrusion, the barges may be part of the reason another new show was announced, with Luminous, the Symphony of Us, opening as part of the Disney 100 celebrations in December 2023. When it debuted, Epcot Centre embodied global optimism and a technological future. Reminiscent of a permanent World's Fair, its early rides entertained and educated guests on a grand scale. With the park ethos shifting over the years, many attractions and experiences have been lost to time, either updated or replaced altogether. These lost rides are still fondly remembered, sparking memories of a now forgotten Epcot Centre.